And welcome to the press center of the Ministry of Information for another round of the Ministers Meet the Press. Today we are privileged to have been joined by the gentlemen and ladies implementing His Excellency's vision at the Ministry of Railway Development.
The Ghana to Burkina Interconnectivity Project can be divided into sections. It's going to commence in Tema, the port of Tema. We had 2 or 3 options to get to Burkina. You can start from Takoradi, go through Kumasi, then the Brown Ahafo region, Tamale, and then to Burkina. The other option was to start from Tema and then go through the Volta region, the Oti region, the Northeast region, the Northern region, then the Upper East region, then to Burkina. Preliminary works were done, consultations were made, consultants gave us initial reports that suggested, also together with the Burkina Bay, that suggested that the Tema port was a port that they were more comfortable with. As I speak, today more goods pass through Tema to Burkina and beyond than pass through Takoradi to Burkina and beyond. At the last figures we had, it's about 700,000 tons that go from Takoradi to Burkina, and about 100 and something thousand tons go from, about 700,000 tons go from Tema to Burkina, and about 100 and something thousand tons goes from Takoradi to Burkina. If you go to Tema just now, you will find even a Burkina Transporters Association. And you must realize that the president's vision of taking the rail line to Paga was not just simply taking the rail line to Paga, but so that it can connect with our neighbors up north. Don't forget that Burkina Faso is a French-speaking country, and we have Togo on our right and Cote d'Ivoire on our left. And so they had an option to either go through the Lomé port or go to the Ivory Coast port. Indeed, there's a narrow gauge line which goes from Cote d'Ivoire to Burkina Faso, and they could have upgraded that line to a standard gauge line. So I think that we are blessed that Burkina agreed or decided to go through our port of Tema. We must also recognize that the port of Tema today is going through several changes. There's a massive development in the port of Tema. There's a massive influx of capital, and we are told by the contractors that it will become by far the biggest port in West Africa, and sometimes we are even told that it may become the biggest port in Africa. Now, if you create such a huge port, and you have such throughput of goods, and you don't have a way to move the goods from the port, then you've created a problem. And the port also was not created just simply for Ghana, because it was just for Ghana, then it's too big for Ghana. It was created bearing in mind that we serve our brothers who are landlocked. You must realize also that at the same time today we become the center of African trade by virtue of the fact that the president, with the assistance of the Minister of Trade and Minister of Foreign Affairs, has managed to bring the headquarters of African trade, the African Continental Trade Area, the headquarters to Ghana. And we have always, as a nation, wanted to position ourselves as where everything in Africa starts from. Sometimes we say West Africa to start with, but we want to position ourselves where all roads lead to Accra. So it's against that background that, after some discussions, it was decided that the Ghana-Burkina project will commence from Tema rather than Takoradi. Another thing is that when you look at our plans that we had to enter into the northern part of Ghana and to enter into Burkina Faso, there were two places we could enter into, Paga and Hameli. Our brothers in Burkina Faso said they want us to enter into their country through Paga. So they took that decision. That does not mean that we will not go to Hameli, but Paga today has taken a pride of place. And when you look at our master plan, we still have plans to go to Hameli. The president said he was going to Paga. He said it when he was campaigning. He said it by way of manifesto. He said it when he became president. He visited Burkina Faso in April, I believe, of 2017. The request of the Burkina Faso president was that don't stop in Paga. Let us have a Ghana-Burkina interconnectivity project. So stop in Ouagadougou, not in Paga. That immediately changed the dynamics of the project. It did a number of things. It made the project more economically and financially viable. Because now you have a line that is going straight to Ouagadougou. What does it mean? It means that an importer who is importing to Ouagadougou and beyond will go on the line as a matter of course. Because even though the line starts in Ghana, if you have Ouagadougou, you consider it as your line as well. It changed the cost of the line because it will become more expensive. Then rather the length increased. And also we had the difficulty of we belonging to two different legal traditions, the civil law tradition and the common law tradition. We also had the difficulty of language. And we had to come together to see how we can marry these two countries, so to speak, who belong to different parts of the ECOWAS sub-region in order to do our interconnectivity project. Now, let's bear in mind that the ECOWAS treaty itself talks about free movement of goods and persons, and within that treaty itself, it also encourages countries within the ECOWAS sub-region to enter into bilateral or multilateral agreements that will further the cause of ECOWAS. It is for that reason, for example, that you have the Lagos-Abidjan road corridor. From Nigeria, Benin, Togo, Ghana, and Abidjan have come together as part of ECOWAS to sign an agreement to have a road corridor that goes to all this length. It is for the same region that you have the West African gas pipeline. So what you are doing is not entirely new. It has been done in other projects, but this is the first time that a real interconnectivity project, in recent time at least, is being done between Ghana and Burkina. It's the first time. The first time it's being done between an Anglophone country and a Francophone country. I must put on record that with the support of the President of Ghana and the President of Burkina, we have come a long way. We formed a committee of experts, a joint committee of experts, which originally were meeting every 2 weeks, made up of officials in Ghana, from the ministry, from the Railway Development Authority, from the Ghana Railway Company Limited. The Ghana Railway Company Limited was represented by Mr. Kwegi, who was not introduced, one of the deputy managing directors of the Ghana Railway Company Limited, who is on secondment to the ministry. It was made up of people from Ministry of Finance, Shippers Authority, and other institutions. Quite a number of institutions were on it. All the institutions which we believe had something to do with the project. And we are joined Foreign Affairs and so on. And we're joined, of course, with our Burkina colleagues. And their duty was that they must come and advise government as to the best thing to do. Our side, the technical committee was co-chaired by a deputy minister for railway development, Honorable Andy Appiah Kubi, and on the other side, it was chaired by one of the officials from Burkina Faso. One of the advice that they gave after a period of time was that, of course, it's a greenfield project. Greenfield project in the sense that the train has never gone that way. So we must appoint transaction advisors. We must appoint experts for them to advise us on a number of things, to advise us on the environmental issues, to advise us on the alignment, to advise us on the economic issues, about displacement of people and so on and so forth. Where are we passing? We say we are going to Burkina Faso. Which way are we going? Which one is the cheapest? What are the issues? Now, what I've learned in the past 2 years is that even the process of appointing consultants and the consultants bringing out their reports and so on itself is a long and laborious process. So we decided, or we asked ourselves, that how can we do this in the shortest possible time to the best interest, in the best interest of Ghana? So we chose Team International. Now, Team International is an Italian company which in 2013 did the master plan for Ghana's railway. So they had primary information about most parts of our railway development. But we added another company called Vision. And Vision is a Ghanaian company. And the reason why we added Vision was that Vision had been given the responsibility to do the consultancy for the Kumasi to Paga line. Now bear in mind that the line that was going from Tema to Ouagadougou was going to go through Pakadan, go to the Volta region, go through Hohoe, go through the Oti region, then go to Yendi and Sheni, and I'll explain in a minute why it had to go to Sheni, then come to Tamale, and then go up to Paga. And the line that was going from Kumasi to Paga also reach Tamale and go up to Paga. Vision had already been given a contract to do from Kumasi to Paga. So we joined Vision and Team to come together and within the shortest possible time give us enough information so that we can look or start procuring the strategic partner. I tell you that I haven't fought with any group as much as I fought with them, but they are professionals. I agree to the fact that they are professionals. So even though I won the thing yesterday and I keep on quarreling with them, they are looking at me and smiling. They insist on that we can't do it in this time. And you know, I know these things. If they can't do it in this time, they can't do it in this time. So they are doing it to the best of their ability, and they are doing it within the shortest time possible. What are they doing? They are doing the entire feasibility study in order to give government options. Where should we pass? What are the options if we decide to pass A or B? For example, I'll give a very simple example. In the Volta region, if we go straight to Ho, it will be much more expensive than if we go past Ho and do a branch line to Ho, because of the hilly nature of the terrain around Ho. Government's policy is that the railway must go to every regional capital, the 16 regional capitals. And so therefore, I've been telling them whether they want it or not, the line will go to Ho. But going to Ho, there are many ways of going to Ho. They can go straight towards Hohoe and do a branch line to Ho, or they can go to Ho and try and come out of Ho and join the route, the Eastern Corridor route up north. Now the difference in price is that when you go into Ho and try and come out of Ho, it increases the cost of the railway line to more than $7 million per kilometer. Averagely in Ghana, we have been building below $6 million. Of course, the price per kilometer depends on the terrain, depends on whether you are buying land, depends on whether you are giving compensation. So when you Google the price of a railway line, they will tell you that it's like asking about the price of a car. I mean, if you ask somebody what is the price of a car, we will ask you questions before he can give you the price of a car. Do you want to buy a Tigo, or you want to buy a Mercedes-Benz or a Rolls-Royce? So there are so many considerations. But we have been trying to keep our costs between 4 million and 6 million. But if we decide to go to Ho straight, we'll go through the roof. But we are going to Ho whether we like it or not. But we will go to Ho as a branch line for the main line. Now, these projects are 100-year projects. The British brought railway into Ghana in 1898. They started from Second D. The alignment that they used, we are still using part of the alignment to do a new railway line. So I don't have the power to sit in my office with my staff and with Ghana Railway Development Authority and Ghana Railway Company to decide that line A, route A is better than route B. We have to advise government, and we cannot just also advise government in isolation. We must go through stakeholder consultation with the people along the line so that they understand what we are coming to do, that they tell us that you can pass here or you cannot pass there. There are areas that they may not want us to disturb the natural habitat and so on for their various traditional and cultural reasons, and may say that you can't pass this way. Now, Team International and Vision tell me that in December this year, they will give us their final draft report. They are sitting here so they can deny it if it's not true. And I brought them here so that when I say it and they don't get up and deny, then it becomes, then it's they who are speaking. It's not me who is speaking. I'm not the consultant. So my duty is to make sure that they do their work within time. And that is what they've told me. And so far, what they've given to me in terms of draft and so on, I have no reason to believe that they will not meet their deadline. But the experience I've had with the 2.5 years that I've been minister is that consultants, contractors, and so on, most of them ask for extension. And they will give you reasons for extension. But I'm hoping that in this case, they won't ask for an extension. When they give us the final report, or even in the process, we work with them towards the final report. Because towards the final report, we must hold stakeholder consultations, and we must get government to agree that this is the route that they want. But there are certain things that will not compromise. The first thing, as I was told them, is that in the regions that we are passing through, Volta, Oti, northeast, and upper east, the rail will touch every regional capital, either directly or as a branch line. Either directly or as a branch line. If you look at the Tema to Ouagadougou line, you can even describe Accra as a branch line. So either directly or as a branch line. Second thing that will not compromise is that it will touch every point of economic importance. In 2013, a master plan was done. If you look at the master plan, it does not go to Sheni. Sheni is where all our iron ore is. I mean, we are told that the iron ore in Sheni is billions of dollars. I mean, over $200 billion or whatever. Now, without rail, you cannot develop the iron ore. And so this new master plan we are doing, and even this design, will pass through Sheni. So when it reaches Yendi from the south, it will go right towards Sheni, whilst the line itself goes left through Yendi towards Tamale. So those are the things we are not going to compromise. Another thing that we are not going to compromise is that it's a standard gauge railway line. Now bear in mind that all the old lines that were done by the British, 947 kilometers, was narrow gauge. This line is a standard gauge. First of all, the AU has said that the gauge that Africa should do is the standard gauge. And we are going into another African country, so we will not do narrow gauge and go there. Secondly, we already have a policy that every new line we are going to build is a standard gauge line. The next thing is that the axle load, the recommendation was 22.5, we have moved it to 25 for various reasons. I mean, you are carrying iron ore and steel, it must be strong. Axle load, when you move the axle load up, then you have to strengthen your bridges and your culverts and your viaducts to make sure that the train can pass over it. We didn't wait to finish with the feasibility before we started the process of procurement. Because when you start the process of procurement, there's certain information that, very basic information that you have that you can use to start with the process of procurement. So we started the process of procurement some time ago, and 14 companies initially showed interest. Out of the 14 companies that initially showed interest, when I say companies, it's usually more than one company. It's consortium. It's one lead company with other companies. Some of them are from America, some from China, and some from the Middle East and other places. They were shortlisted to 4. There's a recommendation just now for the 4 to be shortlisted to 3. One of the 4, the recommendation is that they didn't make the cut as it were, so we should shortlist it further to 3, so that the 3 go into the last stage. That recommendation has not been reviewed yet. And so we may decide to agree with the evaluation panel and shortlist, agree to the 3, or decide that 3 and 4, there's not such a big difference, so all the 4 should go forward. Now, we have put a hold, as it were, to the procurement process, because in order to do the last stage of procurement, they have to, the people who are bidding must give you much more detail. For example, they must be able to tell you how much the line is going to cost. Cost is not the only determinant, because the cheapest is not necessarily the best. Now, in order for the person to tell you how much the line will cost, he must know where the line is passing through. And just now, we have 3 different options. There are 3 different options. So he's not going to give you a costing on 3 different options. We must choose the option that we want to choose so we can go forward and give the people that option that you are going, this is the direction in which you are going. If somebody says that, why haven't you chosen that options? It's a process. The decision is not Joe Gattis. It's not even government alone. We give it back to the people. We have to engage in stakeholder consultation, detailed stakeholder consultation, so that we can come and get the support of it. But don't forget that all the land is new acquisition of land, and the land belongs to the people. We started the consultation. I visited Nairobi not long ago, and we got very good support from the Nairobi. In fact, we've been getting excellent support from the chiefs and people in Ghana because they understand that railway development will completely change the economic fortunes of everywhere the railway line goes. Now, the good news is that the distance from Ghana or Tema to Burkina or to Paga, give or take, I call it give or take because there are 3 different routes, it's about 800 kilometers. So let's call it 800 kilometers, more or less, will take us from Tema to Paga. The distance from the border of Paga or the Burkina side to Ouagadougou is about 200 kilometers, more or less, because Burkina is also going through the same process of firming down the actual route that it wants the line to pass. So we call it a 1,000-kilometer railway line. The good news is that we are already working on 100 kilometers of that 1,000-kilometer railway line. Why do I say we are already working on 100 kilometers? Because that is the Tema in Pakada line. That line started, in the words of one of the seniors in railway development engineering, whose name I won't mention, but he's here, as a port-to-port project. It was, and he's smiling because he knows what he told me. If you look around, there are many people smiling, so you won't see who he is. Now, it was the concept that started from 2006, or even before that, was that we must get to Paga. There's a film that talks about the railway, and when Joy FM showed their latest film, they used portions of that film. And you see in that film, Professor Muya Kumfi talking about the fact that we must get to the north. And so that desire to get to the north led us in 2007, under President Kufuor, to sign an agreement with a company called Dal Ahadas or something like that, to do a feasibility study, to look at the feasibility of what was called then the Tema to Bupe project via Akosombo. So what was designed at that time was a multimodal mode of transport. Akosombo, so the cargo will take off from Tema, it will go to the port of Akosombo, it will be put on a barge, then it will go to Bupe, taking off the barge, then it's in the northern region already and goes up north. It was not a bad project. They signed the agreement, the people, the consultants did the feasibility, they did the route alignment, they did the environmental study, and it was decided that the process for looking for the money should commence. Don't forget that we also have a few problems on the water lake. The water lake, there are 3 stops in it and so on. And so at the same time, I remember because I was in cabinet at the time, there were moves by the Ministry of Ports and Harbour to also engage, I think it was a Canadian group, to clear the water lake by removing the 3 stops and so on, so that bigger barges can go on the water lake. So it was a Tema Bupe project via Akosombo. The process was started looking for the money, change of government came. When you look at the provisions of the Constitution, Article 6, Chapter 6, the Directive Principles of State Policy, we have been told clearly that every government is required to continue the projects of the government that it succeeded. Now, people have said that the Directive Principles of State Policy are not justiciable, that you can't go to court to enforce it. Well, that question has been answered. According to the Supreme Court, in what I'll call the Ghana Lotus Association operators case, it has said that you can enforce the provisions of the directive principle of place policy. So if a project is started under one government and a second government comes and refuses to go on with the project, you can take it to court, unless it can show you reasons why it did not continue with the project. But in any event, we must congratulate the government that took over from the President Kufuor administration, because they continued looking for finance and so on, which had started before, and then settled on a company which is known as AFCONS. AFCONS is part of the Sapoji Paloji Group, and that Sapoji Paloji Group came into Ghana first in 2006, and they are the people who built the Jubilee House starting from 2007. I also know them because at that time I was Attorney General and I was part of the process of negotiating the agreement and signing the agreement and so on. So in 2016, and I remember when I was second deputy speaker, I was sitting in the chair when the agreement, the financial agreement for the Tema to Akosombo line came. And I remember saying to myself, there were people who were criticizing it and so on. And I remember saying to myself in the chair that you shouldn't criticize it too much, because for all you know, government will change and we'll be implementing this project. I didn't think that I would be. I thought that. But anyway, come 2017, government changed. I was made the Minister of Railway Development. And one of the things that we did was that we went about reviewing what was being done, what was done, bearing in mind, of course, Chapter 6 of the Constitution, and also the fact that government is a continuum, that I had no intention to stop things just because it was started by previous government. Let's face it, Professor Mills and President Mahama, President Mills, they are not my enemies. They are not the enemies of people of Ghana. So if they were doing something good, we follow them. In any event, what they were doing was a continuation of the Kufuor project. It was a Kufuor project. I was in government, I was in cabinet when those contracts were signed. So I was already aware of the project that was taking us from Tema to Akosombo, to Bupe via Akosombo. But as Attorney General, you don't get involved in the details, you don't even look at the project and so on. But as Minister of Railway, I had to visit the site. As soon as I visited the site, three things struck me. The first thing that struck me was that we're going to pass through the Akosombo area near the dam, and we're going to locate, or the port that is going to stop us was the Akosombo port, where the Dodi Princess is. Now you have one train, you can have between 600 and 1,000 people in a train who are passing so close to a security installation. When you are going to Akosombo in a car, 4, 5, 6 people, they search you. So what was going to be the logistics of it? That the train with 100,000 people will stop before the gate, and then they will search them before the train will continue. That would be a logistic nightmare. In any event, the conditions in the world between 2007 and 2017 had changed. In 2007, when you travel, they don't allow you to take off. They don't tell you to take off your shoes. Yes, and when you are traveling, when you reach a checkpoint, you take off your shoes, you take off your belt. I remember once I was wearing one of these things, and I told them that it was a coat, a jacket. So they said I should take it off. So here I was out at a border post in a singlet. So I've learned my lesson. I don't travel with these things any longer, so I was here in my singlet and my trousers and socks going through immigration. Yes. And there were some other my brothers from Ghana, but I say about for money in Saudi Arabia. Your minister there, but I know they were laughing at me, but they were not being kind to me. But anyway, the world has changed. So in 2007, you could have a situation where you had a railway near a strategic installation, but 2017, it was becoming increasingly dangerous in this our modern world of terrorism and all of that. So that was my first concern. My second concern was that the whole terrain is rocky. And so what happens is that the plan was that we dig through rock, 1.3 kilometers through rock. At a certain point in time, that rock, that tunnel will be 60 meters away from Akosombo Dam. You know, sometimes it's good to be simple and be simple. I'm not an engineer, but when they told me this, I asked questions. I said, but won't this affect the integrity of the dam? You know, they say that there are as many opinions as there are lawyers, but I've come to the conclusion to that there are many opinions as there are engineers. Because some of the engineers told me that there's something called controlled drilling. They can drill it in such a way that it won't affect. Others said it may affect. You know, all I ask the people of Ghana is that, is it a risk we are prepared to take? That we'll go and drill this dam, this tunnel, 60 meters away from the dam, go and collapse Akosombo Dam. Then that one I have to maybe commit suicide or something. I can't even continue. The effect on Ghana, it will take Ghana 100 years back. The cheapest and largest single source of our energy is the Akosombo Dam. Hydro is still the cheapest by far. And we are going to do a railway that can affect the Akosombo Dam. And we are going to take choices. We are going to take a chance. Hoping that it may work or it may not work. You know, there's a hymn that I like. It says, the distance seen, one step, enough for me. And that was the decision I took, and I took it straight to Cabinet and the President, and they agreed with me. We cannot take that a chance. There was a third reason. If you go to where the Dodi Princess is today, you will see that the entire area is rocky. I remember when they showed me the port, I was so disappointed. I mean, I'd never gone to where because the entire area is rocky. Then I said, isn't there any place for further development? Then they took me on this long winding path to another area which was so far away from the port and said we can do further development here. The whole concept of railway development had changed from 2007 to 2017. In 2017, the concept of railway development was that railway was not an end in itself, just to transport goods. It was a means to an end. So everywhere the railway went, there must be economic development. And so you must have the space to create that economic development. Because you see, let me tell you, railway is expensive. It's not good enough just to build a railway. Building a railway is fine, but how to maintain it, how to be able to let the people subsidize it or support it in some way with some other income so that the people can afford to sit on the train. Because there's no point building a railway line that will collapse in another 10 years or so, or there's no point building a railway line that the people cannot even afford to patronize because it's too expensive. So the most successful concepts of railway development from Hong Kong to wherever is that something, other activity supports the railway, just a crop subsidy, so that the passenger fares can be kept down, etc., etc. When you go to Hong Kong, which is one of the most economically viable railway companies, most of their income does not come from the train. It comes from real estate around the train. The train company has built real estate around the train, and that is where it gets its income from. When you go to Japan, they build a train and then they put cities by it, which puts people on the train. Cargo pays, passenger doesn't pay. And so we had come to a concept of railway development that wasn't railway development simply, but included associated infrastructure. And so for those three reasons I've given, reason of security, reason of the possibility of creating a disaster, taking Ghana 100 years back because of the tunneling, and reason also of the possibility of creating an economic zone in the area, we decided that the Tema to Akosombo project was not a project that we wanted to take forward. Now, at that stage, we had several options. One option was to move the whole development from Tema Akosombo and move it to another region. But we decided to look at the possibility of redesigning, changing, re-engineering the project so that it remains in the community. It still continues to be part of the possibility of going by water towards the north, and it still also becomes part of our whole concept of associated infrastructure and also of going to Burkina Faso. So today we have the Tema Impakadan project, which is a completely different project in terms of the conceptualization and even in terms of the alignment after kilometer 66, and in terms of the cost, it's $48 million more than the previous project. It will cross Asenchi, just behind the Senchi resort, the hotel there, and it will land at a place called Ogoli, which is in the North Tong district. That was where we were there yesterday to lay a stone to commemorate two things: the building of a rail bridge over the River Volta. This is the first time that a rail bridge will be built over the River Volta. And secondly, to also celebrate the entry of public railway into the Volta region. I put the emphasis on public railway because there's a small private railway line that goes to a cement factory which is near our border with Togo, but it's not a public railway line. So this is the first time that public railway is going to enter into the Volta region. And what we have done as a ministry is that even though we develop these projects as part of a larger section, because you see the entire network in Ghana will be 4,000 kilometers and over. So even the Ghana to Burkina section, Paga section, which is about 800 kilometers, is part of a network which will be about 4,000 kilometers. Within that 800 kilometers, as we are developing, we also develop certain sections to be economically viable and stand by themselves. The minute we said we're entering into Burkina Faso, into Volta region, three things happened. The Pakadan area is in the eastern region, but you pass through Ogoli, pass through Dwapong before you go to the river. Dwapong itself, there are proposals to form an internal container terminal which will be changed into an industrial free zone area with time. Why will it be changed? It will be changed because it's today going to be an industrial internal container terminal, so that all the people bringing goods along that route, when they reach Dwapong, they can put it on the train and go to the port. The project from Tema to Ipakadan, according to the contractors, will be completed by August 2020. It will take us another 2-3 years. Now they did 100 kilometers in 2 years. They started in 2018, they are finishing in 2020, 1 year ahead of schedule. I must thank and congratulate, first of all, the contractors, AFCONS. I must congratulate the consultants, team engineering. I must congratulate Ghana Railway Development Authority, headed by Mr. Dombo, Mr. Yaosu, Mr. Kolache. And I must also congratulate the ministry, especially the Deputy Minister General Ajeni Boati, who is our ministry's head of the ministry team for that project. We have learned a lot of lessons on that project. We've learned lessons relating to encroachment. We've learned lessons relating to acquisition of land. And of course, I must also take this opportunity to thank the chiefs of people on that line. That area is the area where land was taken from chiefs to do Akosombo, the Krobo area, and so forth. The Komu area, they were affected by Akosombo. And you know Akosombo, the number of years it was done more than about 50 years ago. Up to date, they are still having problems with compensation and so on. Where they were resettled, they are still having problems there. And so they could very easily have said that we won't allow you to develop unless you resolve all the compensation issues. I went to Nene Sakete, I went to Akomifie. I knelt down, not physically, but I knelt down and begged the chiefs that they should have mercy on us and allow us to proceed whilst we discuss questions of compensation. Why do I say that? Sometimes there's even more than one person who is claiming the land. So even though we are ready to pay the compensation, there's more than one person who is claiming the land, and this is not the first time. When they did the airport, a Bema camp, the Jackson Committee had to be established in the 50s because there were rival claims from the Osus 2, the last two, and even the the Teshisua, even the Nuguas too, that the land belonged to them. So the question of compensation in Ghana is not just having the money. It's also a question of who owns the land. And so we had the money there because the lesson we've learned from what happened in the Akosombo Dam is that now the cost of compensation is part of the cost of the project. It's not a separate thing. So the compensation money is there for when we take over your land, but it has to be valued by the Land Valuation Board, etc., etc. I was watching TV once, and in one African country who have recently built a railway line, and I won't mention the country, you can Google and find out yourself. One of the major problems that occurred post the building was issues of compensation. They said officials had inflated the compensation, people have done all kinds of things. Luckily for us, Joe Gatti, or the ministry, or the Ghana Railway Development Authority is not responsible for valuation of compensation. Matters to do with compensation are under the purview of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and its agencies. So when they tell us that the compensation is 5 cedis, then we pay. It is good. It is not we who are deciding questions of compensation. So here we are now doing Tema in Pakadan. The contractors are Afghans. The people are cooperating. 80% of the people who are working there are Ghanaians. The engineers from Afghan will tell you that when they were estimating that they would take 3 years to do the contract, they made that estimation because they didn't think they would get the internal capacity, human resource capacity to do it. And part of the reason why they are completing the project 1 year ahead of time is because they have seen to their delight that the Ghanaian is capable of managing his own affairs and of building a railway line. In the process, we are training capacity. As part of the contract, they are supposed to do some capacity training, and the Ghana Railway Development Authority has been religiously taking advantage of it, and very soon they will be expanding it to other sectors of the railway sector, and even with new people who join the railway sector. So as far as I'm concerned, the 800-kilometer line, the first 100 kilometers, which is the Tema in Pakadan section of it, will complete next year by August. It is my prayer, and I say it is my prayer because railway development is fraught with banana peels, that anything can happen at any time that will unexpectedly delay your project. But it is my prayer that by the time we finish the construction of this line in August 2020, we would have already chosen the contractor and would have commenced construction of the remainder of the line to Ouagadougou, with our section being now from Dwapong to Paga. That is my prayer. So, Honorable Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that is my short report on the Ghana to Burkina Rail Interconnectivity Project, and thank you very much.